Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome on behalf of the Austrian Academy of Sciences for this book presentation of Martin Karplus's book Facetten meines Lebens, which is the German translation of his originally titled, in English titled book, Spinach on the Ceiling, The Multifaceted Life of a Theoretical Chemist, by the publisher of the Austrian Academy of Sciences. I have the honor to be the moderator of today's book presentation, and I am very happy to give President Heinz Fassmann the word for his welcoming remarks. Please.
Yes, thank you very much for your introduction, dear Professor Karplus, dear Professor Zeilinger, my colleagues. I warmly welcome you to the 2 days online presentation of the book. Mr. Karplus, I don't know if you remember, but we met before. It was in the year 2015, during the 650th anniversary of the University of Vienna. I was a member of the rectorate at that time, and we decided to give you the Ehrendoktorat of the university. But I'm sure you met so many people during that ceremony, and afterwards you don't remember. Therefore, I'm happy to see you here, at least via my laptop. Your book and the German translation Facetten meines Lebens, Optimismus, Selbstvertrauen und manchmal Glück, is so exciting, and I went through the book and found so many interesting aspects. I also want to welcome especially my predecessor and initiator of that project, the former President Anton Zeilinger. Welcome, Anton, and thank you very much for realizing this project. It is quite remarkable how much sensitivity you have always approached, always given to the themes of the time when Austria was part of the Nazi Reich, to the Holocaust, to anti-Semitism, and also to the question of what is the responsibility of Austria during that time. You know, we have all prejudices, and you are a quantum physicist, and I do not expect that a natural scientist is so much interesting in all these interesting but very sensitive topics. So thank you very much for the invitation and for organizing. I'm happy to be here, and I'm really interested in and looking forward to the presentation. Mr. Karplus, from my side, warm regards and warm greetings from the Academy.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, President Fassmann, and I may pass the word on to former President Anton Zeilinger, please.
Well, I remember, and this seems to coincide with your memory, Martin, that we met for the first time at a curious event, namely at the US National Academy of Sciences. When I was elected to the Academy, there is an interesting habit which I think the US copied from either the British or the French. I don't remember, that every new member has to walk up and sign his name into the book. And after this event, this colleague came up to me who I hadn't known and said, "Okay, I'm Martin Karplus. I came from Vienna too." I found that very spontaneous and very nice. Now, couple of years later, when your Nobel Prize was announced, it's always a way when a Nobel Prize announced is for a person who had emigrated from Austria, or who was forced to flee from Austria, which are certainly the better words. When people get such a prize, it's always certainly a situation where one is happy for the person, one is happy for the field, but one cannot be happy for Austria, because Austria evidently lost, some people who were outstanding scientists, and one remembers that all the difficulties these persons have gone through, but also the fact that academic life in Austria would probably be significantly different had this not had happened. We Jews were leaders in science and in the arts in many fields, and so in whatever that might mean, and I hope in the long run, and I hope that in the long run we achieve a more relaxed attitude also from some Austrians. Anti-Semitism unfortunately still exists in this country, and all we can do is to build bridges from our sides, and that is what we all want to contribute. Now, when you received the Nobel Prize, I was asked by the Austrian embassy, I don't know if it was on your suggestion or not, to come and say a few words for Austrian science.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what can you say in such a situation? And to me, the most important thing to say was that, besides congratulating you and your family, and I was happy to meet your family in person, which had not happened before, to say that to apologize and to say that it is not selbstverständlich. It is not clearly automatically that in that situation you come to the Austrian embassy, and that we have a possibility to talk in person. Well, and later on, we decided to present you with the honorary membership of the Academy, and also with the I would call the Great Cross, the Ehrenzeichen, which is the Great Cross of Merit for Science and Arts in Austria. And I was not sure whether you might accept it. And thank you very much that you accepted it, because these kind of connections are very, very important for younger people. It's also important that this book now came out, which is written so lively, and I actually like the American title very much, "Spinach on the Ceiling," which describes a moment in your life, you can correct me, where you didn't like to eat spinach and you threw it up to the ceiling. And I don't know if that attitude had changed now, as you have become a renowned cook. Maybe there are some specialties where you use spinach. I would like to hear that. Anyway, so with that lighter note, I would like to maybe end my short introductory words. And I'm very happy that this book came out in German.
Thank you so much, President Zeilinger. And you, Professor Karplus, were so kind to offer us the possibility to speak to us. And I may give you the floor, and we are very eager to listen what you have to say to us. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for these kind words of introduction, and particularly to thank you, Anton, for making it possible to have a German edition of my autobiography. I would also like to especially thank Mr. Vogel, who did the actual translation, and the many others, such as Stefan Borish, a former student of mine, who contributed to make the final edition error-free, or as error-free as one can hope it to be. Why did I write this autobiography? First, to try to inspire young people, particularly students in the sciences, that even I met difficulties in my research, and importantly, that the faith I had in myself permitted me to overcome them. A striking example of this is the research which led to the Nobel Prize. I proposed to extend the studies I had made in the 1960s of the simplest chemical reaction, that of an atom, hydrogen atom, with a hydrogen molecule, which involves only 3 atoms, to macromolecules, biological macromolecules, and nucleic acids and proteins, which should involve hundreds and thousands of atoms. My chemical colleagues said that that would be meaningless, since it was very difficult still to get accurate results for reactions involving only 4 or 5 atoms. And my biological colleagues said that even if I could do it, it would be of no interest to them. Clearly, time has shown both of them to be wrong. The lesson to be learned from that is that if a student finds an important problem of interest to him or to her, the student should have enough faith to continue working on the problem and not be discouraged by the comments of others. Though, again, the student should listen to the comments, because sometimes they may be wrong. Second, I hoped that my autobiography would bear witness to future generations of what had happened in Austria during the Nazi period. This is why the German edition is so important. As the then Mayor Heupel said when he inducted me as an honorary citizen of Vienna in 2015, we cannot undo what happened, but we will do our best to not let it happen again. Given the rise of anti-Semitism in Austria, this remains a present-day concern to me and other Jews. Finally, in writing the autobiography, I wanted to remind myself of how fortunate I am to be where I am today and to pass what happened in my life on to my wife and children and other relatives. Let me now read a few passages from the German autobiography. taking out to get organized. So with an extended family of 20 or so, as already has been mentioned, we regularly spent some summers at a lake in Austria, the Attersee, or a house rented on the Adriatic coast. During one such summer in the early 1930s, the following event happened. Eines Tages hob eine Freundin meiner Eltern mich am Strand hoch und umarmte mich sehr zu meinem Missfallen. Ich schrie laut, ich bin ein Nazi. Darüber war sie so erschrocken, dass sie mich fallen ließ. Offensichtlich war es mir schon dankbar klar, vermutlich, weil ich meinen Eltern und anderen zugehört hatte. Ein Nazi zu sein, war das Schlimmste, was es gab. I have an experience from my graduate student days. I was Pauling's last student, as he generally worked only with postdocs and visiting faculty. Wenn ich zu Gegensprechen mit Pauling ging, fühlte ich mich manchmal eingeschüchtert, aber es war großartig, mit ihm zu arbeiten und seiner intuitiven Herangehensweise an chemische Fragestellungen konfrontiert zu werden, auch wenn ich sie nicht mal zwangsläufig verstand. Eines Tages fragte ich Pauling nach dem Aufbau eines bestimmten Wasserstoffbrückensystems. Das heißt, ob die Wasserstoffbrücken wie in FHF symmetrisch seien. Er hielt ihn, dachte eine Zeit lang nach. Dabei lehnte er sich immer auf seinen Stuhl zurück und blickte zu der Decke und formulierte eine Vorhersage für die Struktur. Als ich ihn fragte, wie er darauf kam, dachte er nochmal nach und gab eine Erklärung ab. Ich verließ sein Arbeitszimmer und schon bald wurde mir klar, dass seine Erklärung keinen Sinn ergab. Also ging ich wieder zu Pauling und fragte ihn, denn ich dachte, er werde nun vielleicht zu einer anderen Schlussfolgerung gelangen. Stattdessen erklärte er, nach seiner Überzeugung sei die vorher gesagte Struktur richtig und gab nun eine vollkommen andere Erklärung ab. Nachdem ich seine Analyse durchgearbeitet hatte, war ich mit seiner Überlegung wiederum nicht zufrieden und fand ihn ab, als er gerade sein Büro verließ, und wieder gab er eine andere Begründung. Diese schien mir sinnvoller zu sein. Also nahm ich einige große Berechnungen vor und die deuteten darauf hin, dass Pauling tatsächlich recht hatte. Eines aber verblüffte mich damals und verblüffte mich noch bis heute. Er gelangte offensichtlich durch Intuition zu der richtigen Schlussfolgerung ohne die Analyse durchgearbeitet zu haben. Er kannte die richtige Antwort, auch wenn es mehr Nachdenken erforderte, den Grund herauszufinden. I will now describe an experience that resonates with what is unfortunately still happening in the United States. Meine Eltern hatten mir zum Examen ihr altes Auto geschenkt und während meiner Zeit am Caltech fuhr ich mehrere Male für einen Teil des Sommers quer durchs Land zu meinem Elternhaus in Newton in Massachusetts. Dabei wählte ich jedes Mal eine andere Route. Einmal fuhr ich durch Kanada, wobei ich die Nationalparks Banff und Jasper besuchte. Ein anderes Mal durch den tiefen Süden. Auf einer solchen Reise, wir fuhren gerade an einem sehr heißen Sommertag durch Texas, entschlossen sich meine Freunde und ich, eine Badepause einzulegen und uns abzukühlen. Wir kamen an einem eingezäuntes Schwimmbereich vorbei, der voll Menschen war. Da wir von der langen Reisefahrt unrasiert und schmutzig waren, suchten wir entlang des Flusses nach einer ruhigeren Badestelle. Ungefähr eine Meile stromabwärts stießen wir auf einen weiteren Badestrand, bei dem zerbrochene Stufen zum Wasser hinunterführten. Er war menschenleer und so kamen wir zu dem Schluss, das sei für uns die ideale Stelle zu baden. Nachdem wir ungefähr 10 Minuten im Wasser waren, führten mehrere Pickups vor und Männer mit schussbereiten Gewehren stiegen aus. Wie sich herausstellte, handelt es sich um Beamte der örtlichen Polizei. Sie befahlen uns, aus dem Wasser zu kommen und fragten, ob wir wüssten, was wir da täten. Weiße, die in einem Bereich baden, der für Negro reserviert ist. Sie hatten an unserem Auto das Nummernschild aus Massachusetts bemerkt und waren der Ansicht, dass wir seien Störenfriede aus dem Norden. Mit einiger Mühe konnten wir ihnen erklären, dass wir angesichts unseres unbefriedigten Zustandes einfach die anderen weißen Menschen nicht belästigen wollte. Die Beamten ließen uns gehen und ermahnten uns, wir sollten besser geradewegs durch Texas fahren, ohne einzuhalten, was wir auch taten. Finally, one experience in my career of working in 3-star Michelin guide restaurants that I will always remember is what happened after I worked in the kitchen of Joël Robuchon's restaurant. He was the 3-star chef it was recognized as such. Als mein Praktikum zu dem Ende zuneigte, war es für mich etwas derart Besonderes gewesen, dass ich auf den Gedanken kam, es mit einem Essen mit Marci zu feiern. Mit der Reservierung wartete ich bis wenige Tage vor dem Termin. Und so war es nicht wunderlich, dass der Maître d'Hôtel mir antwortete, es tut ihm leid, aber das Restaurant sei ausgebucht. Ein wenig später kam er aber zu mir zurück und sagte, es sei ihm gelungen, einen Tisch für mich für uns zu reservieren. Vermutlich hatte Robichaud eingegriffen. Marci war am gleichen Morgen mit dem Zug aus Straßburg eingekommen und man führte uns zu einem schönen Tisch, auf dem eine Flasche Champagner in einem Kühler auf uns wartete. Auf der Speisekarte für Marci standen keine Preise. Das allein war in eleganten Restaurants nicht ungewöhnlich. Meine wies aber auch keine Preise auf. Ich machte Marci darauf aufmerksam und fragte sie, was ich tun solle. Darauf antwortete sie, nun, mir ist es klar, was das bedeutet. Robichaud ladet uns ein. Es war ein wunderbares, elegantes Menü und als es zu Ende kam, begleitete uns der Maître d'Hôtel in Robichauds Wohnzimmer, wo wir mit ihm Kaffee und Cognac tranken und eine Weile plauderten. Nach Straßburg zurückgekehrt, schickte ich ihm eine besondere Flasche Eau de Vie de Poire, einen Branntwein, für den das Elsass berühmt ist. Im Gegenzug erhielt ich einen Dankenbrief von ihm. Cher Monsieur, très sensible et touché, je vous remercie chaleureusement pour la beauté des marques que vous m'avez adressées. C'était un plaisir de vous recevoir. C'était un plaisir de vous recevoir en stage dans mon établissement. Je vous prie d'agréer, monsieur, l'expression de mes sentiments distingués. Sein Joel Robichaud. Robichaud war nicht nur ein großartiger Küchenchef, sondern auch ein Gentleman. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Professor Karplus, for your presentation and honoring us with reading from the German translation of your beautiful book, teasing obviously and hopefully our auditory to buy the book and read the book. It is so much worth it. Yeah, please, Professor Zeilinger, you wanted to give some comments and remarks to the book, please.
Sorry, I asked about the procedure. At what time will the audience be asked? I can say now something, a few words, if you want.
The auditory may post questions and I will then, after your comment, read the questions to Professor Karplus, which is willing to answer. That would be the procedure.
Okay, so it's my turn now. Thank you. Well, what you, Martin, mentioned about young people and their ideas is exactly what I tell my students all the time. You know, when they come to me, I tell them, follow your nose. I mean, give them my comment about what they are presenting me, and sometimes I have a different viewpoint, but also students from other fields come, like from friends, students come, and I always tell them, you know, follow your nose if you know what you want, if you know what you like to do. It could happen that you know, this is very special. I should also mention I was impressed by this long list of Karplusians at the end of the book. This must be about 200 people, if I guess it somehow correctly. I didn't count them.
250.
230, and I didn't. And all this. So these are academic grandchildren and great-grandchildren also, or where, because it would be impossible to collaborate with all these people, right? So it must be some later generations.
Yeah, well, they were all children.
They were all children. That's extremely impressive. 230 children is something, yeah.
Well, when I was younger, I had large groups of 40 or so people working with me, which now seems somewhat unbelievable.
Yeah.
When I'm working with just 2 postdocs.
Yeah.
But it was certainly one of the reasons that I think my teaching of them, working with them, was led to them being independent researchers and professors, is that, as you sort of mentioned, I would, if I realized after giving them a trial problem that they were, you know, very smart, I would basically let them work independently and let them come to me if they had a problem. And in that way, I think it led to them becoming independent researchers.
Yeah, the human mind is fascinating in this respect. Like I'm sure you must have, in some cases, and you must have had the same experience. In some cases, somebody comes to me with an idea and gives a reason where the reason is completely wrong, but the idea is great. So the human mind works in very strange ways sometimes, you know. Yeah. I'm sure this has happened to you too.
Well, certainly that was true of Pauling.
Yeah, right. That was the case. Yeah. I would like to mention 2 more points from your book, if I may, which I think should be mentioned. One is your father was held back by the Nazis, and you write that he that he had to pay various sums and probably some tax duties, which to a significant extent, I guess, was just invented by the Nazis, until he finally could leave. And after the war, that there were people who claimed that they helped your father to come out, various people. And what your parents did was, and I find that extremely moving, to send all these people care packages, not judging, what, not making it dependent whether this was true or not. And that's an impressive sign of generosity, if I may say that. And a second small comment I would like to make is, which was not mentioned, is your lifelong activity as a peace activist. And just to mention this one event, which is at the end of your book, where you were given the honorary doctorate at the Paris University, and where you kind of asked, and they although insisted, or I don't know what the right word is, that this lecture would also be open to Palestinians. And then yes, your book ends with the words that it's important that people know each other and have contact with each other in all different levels. And in this case, this way I see your book, and I also see your contribution to this movie of Exile in Excellence, that future generations have a possibility to contact you, to read your book, read your personal accounts. These are the most important ones, where the person and the emotions come in, and I'm sure that will last.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Probably you allow me to give some one or two questions from the chat I have here, and this would be fitting to what Professor Zeilinger has said about the motivation of students. And in reading your book, it becomes obvious that in your career, how important mentoring has been. What would be your assessment for today? Do you feel that mentoring still is conducted in the way you have experienced, or is there change?
I think it's not really changed. And I hear from my former graduate students who are now professors that they appreciate my mentoring. And there's one aspect where, in terms of writing papers, although I was, as I mentioned earlier, gave them a lot of freedom about doing their research, when it came to publishing a paper, I was very strict, and went over, they would write the draft to the paper and I would over it, and make sure that everything that was said in the paper was correct. And that often took quite a while, and they got annoyed at me. But now I hear from them that when they have students, they basically follow in my footsteps and make sure what is written, then realize the importance of making sure what they publish, in contrast to the freedom of the research, be correct. So I would say that this was a long answer to your question that I don't think things have really changed.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. And I have another question from the auditory. Could you elaborate how the dreadful and difficult experiences you had to experience as a child in Austria influenced your scholarly life?
Well, as you know from the book, we were very lucky that I was very lucky that my parents were aware enough of the situation that they realized that something was going to happen with Hitler and Austria, and prepared for us to escape to France so that we avoided, the concentration camps. And from France, we went to Switzerland, and from Switzerland, we came to the US. And as was already mentioned, my father was in jail for a while in Vienna. And my mother always said, don't worry, we will be able to come together, all together, to the US. Now, I'm sure that my mother really wasn't that convinced that everything would be all right. But indeed, it happened that when we finally got a visa to come to the United States, thanks to an uncle who worked at a company, and the head of the company guaranteed, as you had to have to be able to get a visa to go to the US, that you would not become, that he would take responsibility for you. And so when we finally did get the visa and went to the ÖAW, my father joined us there, and just as my mother had, quote, predicted, we all came together to the United States. Once I was here, and now I'll get back to your specific question. I always felt a little bit outside. I didn't feel, if you like, that I was a real American, plus being Jewish. I always felt that I had to do better to, be accepted, if you like. And that was one thing that was, I think, played a role in my doing exciting research. I think if I had stayed in Vienna, I probably would have followed my grandparents to go to medical school, and I would have been a good physician, maybe we're doing research, but would never have come anywhere close to doing something to get the Nobel Prize. And so there had this pressure, if you like, on me to work hard and hard enough to do something special. The other aspect was that I had this courage to not stick with one particular subject, as many people do, but to realize that I could do important research in different areas. In fact, I had this so-called plan that every 5 years I would change my institution to interact with new people and work on a new subject. And this conviction that I could do that was also somehow related to my having come as a refugee.
Thank you a lot for this answer. Yeah, thank you so much. Are you willing to take another question from the chat?
Sure, I'll try to answer.
Yes, it's not as hard to I hope I read it to you. I had accidentally the chance to visit the small exhibition at the University of Vienna in 2015 with photographs from your trips in Europe. Could you please comment on this facet of your life, traveling and meeting people and enjoying nature a bit more?
Well, when my parents gave me as a PhD present a Leica camera that my uncle had brought from Europe, even though I had done very little photography before, I did. My mother had a good camera, and she lent it to me, and I did a certain amount of work. But then I sort of felt that given this good camera, I should use it, and became very interested in taking photographs during my travels. And the other thing was that when I had my PhD and went to Europe, I was only 23 years old. And so I decided that it was time, that I had the time to travel a lot. And so when I was in Europe, we traveled all over the place, from Italy in the south to Norway in the north. And I took photographs. And then when I came back to the United States, I traveled back and forth across the country, and also visited when I was invited. Basically, when I was invited to give a lecture, now that I was becoming more well-known, I would only accept if it was a place where I thought I could do some good photography. And so I also went to Asia, and I have this, to me, famous picture of Hong Kong, which, as most of you must know, is now full of skyscrapers. At that time, it was a small village, and I have this photograph of Hong Kong as a village with the mountain that rises up behind it there. And one thing I didn't do, unlike some other photographers, is to interact very much with the people I photographed. In fact, in most of my photographic work, I was interested in taking pictures of people, as could be seen in the exhibition which was shown in Vienna. But I didn't interact with these people. In fact, what I'm trying to say, it was really just the opposite. I wanted them to not to pose for me, but to be natural. And so in most cases, I used this special lens I had to take pictures of them, where I would be able to face away from them and just point the camera toward them. And they didn't know that I was taking a picture of them. They realized I was taking a picture and would look around to see what I was photographing. But it was the fact that it was natural expression to me. So the short answer is I didn't really interact with people in most cases. And but getting them to look natural was what I focused on.
Thank you very much. I have no remaining questions in the chat. Do you want to make a remark of conclusion, Professor Zeilinger, Professor Karplus, before we end this session of book presentation? And I want to repeat my recommendation to read this marvelous book, and it will give you many, many interesting details, but also very wise advice also for young people, especially for young people and students. But please, Professor Zeilinger, if you want to make a closing remark.
Well, I'm very moved by this presentation because it showed the width of a very special personality, and you know, which this person who had to go through unusual experiences in life. And I might remark, and I find it, I personally, I'm mostly moved by the fact that we have this meeting today, and that you, Martin, allowed us to contribute a little to growing connections with Austria again after all what happened. And well, I hope we can welcome you and Marzi again someday here in Vienna. You know, the COVID problem was not helpful, but I'm sure it will happen again. It would be great.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to present my thoughts about the book Facetten meines Lebens.
So thank you very much. And it is my honor now and duty to thank you all for being with us, also to the auditory. And I wish you all a good further on evening in Vienna and a remaining lovely day in the United States. And I hope to see you well again. Thank you a lot. Goodbye.
Goodbye.